covered cross-episodal series, Trio of Lamb. And welcome to the well-equipped kitchen and the Spicerer's table today. The odd angles today because I want to show you this equipment, what I have in front of me. What we're going to look at today at the beginning of this series, the Trio of Lamb, is we're first going to look at charcuterie basic items you can have in your kitchen to do basic charcuterie work, which I have in front of me. And then for the recipe today, I'm going to show you how to make basic fresh sausage. We're going to make a beautiful sausage. And then in our second episode of this series, we're going to learn how to make lamb stock and how to braise lamb. And we're going to learn about braising, stewing, and stock making and the equipment needed for that, which includes the stock pots and covered casseroles and all of that jazz on the second episode. On the third episode, we're going to learn about roasting pans and baking pans, and we're going to learn how to make gratin dauphinoise. In the fourth episode, we're going to learn about the saucier's pans and what a saucier uses to create their masterpiece sauces that are perfect and en pointe. And then in our fourth episode, which will be the finale, which will be Dinner at Joe's, we're going to put it all together with the centerpiece, which will be a herbed rack of lamb, which we will be serving with the braised lamb and the lamb sausage, plus gratin dauphinoise, the sauce bordelaise, and string beans. But in this episode, this joint episode of the Well-Equipped Kitchen and the Spicerer's Kitchen, we're going to take a look at basic charcuterie equipment you can have in your kitchen for making charcuterie. The most visible one here is this. This is a KitchenAid stand mixer. It is fitted here with the paddle attachment, which is the attachment you would use for mixing sausages, meatloaf mixtures. You can also use it to mix force meats and stuff like that. But its main use, and we're going to take off the accessory port here, is meat grinder. And we're looking at the meat grinder parts here. First of all, we have this piece right here. This is the feed tube. Next, we have the worm. And we have the screw-on end cap here, which screws on. And then we have a multitude of outputs here. First of all, most important, is the cutter blade here. Next, we have the plates. This is the fine plate, and this is the coarse plate. These plates and the cutter have to be stored in vegetable oil, and I keep a jar and have them stored in vegetable oil. When you're ready to use them, pull them out of the vegetable oil, wash them with soapy water until they are not greasy. Then they need to be dried off. And depending on what you're doing, if you're going to grind a lot of meat, all these equipment can be pre-chilled, with the exception of this item and the plunger, which we'll talk about in a minute. All can be pre-chilled in an ice bath or park it in the freezer. This is for the end cap. It's for tightening and loosening the end cap. As you see, it fits on like so. These are sausage stuffing funnels. This one's broken, but I personally don't use these because I like to stuff sausage with a manual meat grinder instead of an electric one. And right here is the sausage adapter. When you hook this up to start with, we're going to place the feed tube on the machine like so. Next goes the worm. It slides right in. Then you slide on the cutter. And then you put on the plate desired. We'll put the coarse plate on here just for demonstration purposes. Then you tighten this hand tight. Then you take the tightener and you tighten it just a little bit more, like so. And then you have to tighten this piece down here. This piece, since the cap has been broken off, I'll use pliers to tighten this up. And then you'll want to turn it on, and then you'll probably have to retighten it. Now to release, you go the other way. First, talk about this, the plunger. Plunger is used when you're feeding ingredients through to press them into the worm itself, or the auger as it's also called. That's important. One other tip I would like to show you, I have some plastic wrap here. Pull this out of the way for a second. When you're grinding, the magic trick when you're grinding, we're going to tear off about this much plastic wrap, depending on how low your bowl is, and then affix the plastic wrap to the end of the tube like so, and then around the bowl, or even in the bowl would be fine. And what will happen here is as the meat grinds through, it will hit this and go right into the bowl without flying every which way because you didn't have anything on the outside. We will in the future have a couple of episodes where we will show this meat grinder in context of making falafels and chopping herbs for tabbouleh in a later episode. Now we're going to remove this because I'm going to show you one more thing, how to attach the, so we're going to take this and remove it. Loosen it up here, there we go. And then pull it out, push the worm and the blade out. Now we're going to put the sausage, just show you how to attach the sausage funnel. You just take one of these tubes here, place it on like so, and then you take the end cap. And this thin tube is for sheep casing, and this larger tube is for the hog casing. And you just tighten it as is. But I don't use these sausage tubes, so that's why they are breaking. I really don't care. It's nothing that I care about, so don't worry about seeing those break. So that's grinding with the stand mixer. Push this out of the way here. One more thing here, mixing. You can mix your sausage mixtures in the stand mixer using the paddle attachment. If you're going to do a lot of sausages, or if you're going to make the moderately technique sausages, which are partway between an emulsified sausage and a fresh sausage, like Swiss Bockwurst or Swiss Bratwurst, which requires an cream to be emulsified into the mixture, that is where this is going to come into play. For just normal mixing needs, I'll just use this bowl to illustrate. This is what I recommend. This is a Matford silicone mixing paddle. I also have a one made by Winco that's the same. These can handle very high temperatures when used for cooking purposes, but for this purpose, they are the best for mixing sausage mixtures, fresh sausage mixtures that don't need to be mixed as intensely as an emulsified sausage or the in-between sausages. And you don't have to put your hands in there if you don't want to. Talking about sausages, you can do that by this. You can also use a rotary meat grinder that attaches to a table. I don't have mine here at the moment, but I do have one and it works well, and you feed the meat in while somebody cranks and then you exit your sausages. What I do have is this. This is a sausage funnel. One here on the left, this is a family heirloom, probably about 100 years old, maybe a little more. This belonged to my great-great-grandmother, Mama. and she would stuff sausage with it. It was then passed down to my grandmother, who got it, and my grandmother used to use it to make sausages. This is a modern interpretation of the same thing, and it's very easy. It works really easily. You dip this into water, you slip on your soaked, wet casing, usually hog, or if you're doing sheep, you might do maybe you'll do a sausage with sheep casing. You slip it on, you tie the end either with string or tie the end with the casing itself, and then you just add and you stuff. Take a little and you stuff, using your thumb to push the meat in to the funnel itself. Those are very easy to have, and it doesn't take up much space to have one of these. And you can make links of Italian sausage. You got leftover ground meat, you can turn it into a quick sausage. You can also, if you don't want to stuff your sausage, you can make breakfast sausages. They're very nice to make. Pull all this stuff out of the way and we'll slide over here. The other important thing now is tureens and molds. Getting into charcuterie, you're going to want tureens and molds. This is the old school enameled cast iron. This one is made by Descoware. This is a porcelain fish mold. This is great for doing aspics, as well as doing molded fish mousses, which are set with gelatin or aspic. This one I had to search out and find. I had to get this one in Paris, France at Oud de Hilleran, one of the greatest cooking shops in the world, if not the greatest. I had to go there to find this because it produces this beautiful pate or terrine, whatever you're making, and you get beautiful headstone shaped, as you can see from looking at the inside. You get beautiful headstone shaped slices, and it has a cover on it. Seal that. This is an old school porcelain one that I got from a chef, and this makes nice pate as well, and terrines. And this is another rarity piece. This is a pate en croûte mold designed for making the pate that's cooked in pastry. And those are simple items you're going to need for making charcuterie. All your normal items like knives and bowls we're not showing here because that's normal in your kitchen. These are the additional items you're going to need to deal with it. Cooking patés. Last item on our punch list here is you're going to need a bath to cook your terrines in. Once they're wrapped, and it's best to wrap them with foil and fully sealed, and then they go into a water bath like this. And this is how they're going to cook in the oven. This is a nice two-handled aluminum roasting pan. You can also use a pan like this. Another baking pan will work just fine. For the pate en croûte mold, you do not cook the pate in a water bath. But that's how simple it is. It's easy. The only pate mold that I do not have here is the long enameled cast iron. You see the ones made by Le Creuset. They're wonderful, but I just don't own one. And I don't make enough pate to where I would need another piece of equipment. These function just fine for me. And that's your basic charcuterie equipment. You'll be able to do everything with this. You'll be able to do everything from terrines and cooked terrines and terrines that are just molded and pressed. You'll be able to do patés, all kinds of aspic work, like if you wanted to do a fish aspic, and then the bottom is a fish mousse, and the top is a clear fish aspic with beautiful garnish of vegetables. It's wonderful. You can also use custard cups and bouillon cups, and you can make individual eggs in aspic with just normal items around the house. Even a glass, and then you turn it upside down to invert. Little stubby juice glass will work fine too. It's beautiful stuff. And when we come back, we're going to make basic fresh sausage. Now I'm going to show you how to make beautiful lamb and rosemary sausage. Welcome back to the well-equipped kitchen and the Spicerer's table. Now we're going to make fresh sausage and show you how easy it is, and we're going to talk a little about sausage. These are the casings. I just brought them out to show you they're packed in salt. And they come attached like so. And you pull off what I pulled off what I needed the night before and soaked it in water and ran the water through the casings, open them up so that all the salt crystals get flushed out. We'll slide that out of the way for now, and we'll talk about our ingredients. Main ingredient here is ground lamb. I have 24 ounces, which is 1.5 pounds of ground lamb. And I have 2 sliced rashers of bacon that I have frozen and ground and kept chilled. Both are chilled, actually. This is going to be our fat. You could also use pork fat here. If you're using pork fat, you can use a little less on the salt for seasoning your sausages. And I'm going to grab my salt cellar, little extra salt here, because we're probably going to need to add a little extra than what I have measured. And now for flavoring our sausages, I have cooked off a shallot with a little bit of garlic, and I added the garlic towards the end. And being a lamb and rosemary sausage, we are going to be using fresh rosemary. We've also got some fresh thyme chopped, salt, and this is some coriander seed that I crushed in a mortar and pestle. Doesn't need to be super finely ground. We're also going to use freshly ground black pepper. We're going to use for our liquid ingredients 2 tablespoons of dry sag sherry. This is made by Williams & Humbert. It's lovely stuff. It's going to give a nice flavor. We also have an internal garnish for our sausage. And to give just a little bit of sweet and sour flavor, I have a Braeburn apple that I have lightly caramelized here in some clarified butter. I have also chopped up a little parsley, and that's our interior garnish. I also cooked the shallot here, also in clarified butter. Let's pull the meat out of the way and grab our bowl. And we're going to start by adding our meat, our bacon fat and bacon in here first. And I just ground the bacon in a little mini food processor, but you can do what you like here. Now we're going to use this device because we're not going to put our hands in here at the moment. We're going to break it all up. Get the meat broken up. We want to get everything dispersed. And just use it and just break the meat up. It's important at this point that we get the fat from the bacon and the lamb evenly distributed. You don't have your mixture well mixed, then you're not going to have a good sausage, because some sausage will be juicier than others. Once you get it broken down, just start mashing and we'll get to a texture where you can see everything. I want to make sure it's evenly blended. That looks good at this point. Now we're going to start with our shallots in here, and they are cooked. It's important to have the shallots sauteed. Brings out more of their flavor. We will at this point put our seasonings in here. We're also going to put in our fresh nutmeg. You don't need much. That's plenty. And fresh pepper. And always make sure it's freshly ground. If you want your pepper already ground and to sprinkle it, then I would recommend getting a pepper grinder, the twist pepper grinder that grinds into a container, and then you just pre-grind it. or you do a mortar and pestle or a spice grinder. Now we're going to get this evenly combined before we proceed to the next step, which is incorporating our liquid and our interior garnish. And this sausage is going to sit for 2 days in the refrigerator before it is cooked. Okay. Now we're going to start incorporating our liquid in here. Put a little bit in at a time, about a tablespoon's worth at the beginning. Now we'll put in the other tablespoon. And when making sausages, you can use, the liquid can be wine. When making Mexican style chorizo, the liquid is vinegar and can often be red wine vinegar, cider vinegar, even distilled vinegar, but the fruitier vinegars have a much better flavor. That's nicely mixed. Now we'll add our interior garnish here, which we'll scrape in. Okay. Now we'll mix this in, and then we'll have our sausage mixture made. That is sausage. You have made sausage. When we come back, we're going to show you how to stuff sausages. Welcome back to the well-equipped kitchen and the Spicerer's table. And here's our sausage meat that we made. Now if you're making basic breakfast sausage, you can form them into patties and then they can be sauteed in a skillet. But what we're going to do is we're going to actually stuff sausages. And I have taken the casings here. We're going to stuff sausages. We're going to find the end. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to dip the stuffing funnel into the water. That's of utmost importance. Everything has to be wet when you do this process. And you just put it on, and you need to be careful because of how you slip the casing onto the but it has to be wet. If the casing is not wet, then you're going to have problems when we stuff. So just continue. If it's bunched up, you just give it a little tug in the opposite direction. Just make sure to have water near you if you need to re-wet. You need to wet your hands or wet the funnel at any time or re-moisten the casing itself. This, as I said, this is the hog casing. The sheep casing is a smaller diameter casing made from sheep intestines. They last a long time in your refrigerator, over a year, if they're packed properly in salt. We're nearing the end here. It's important to not let it get twisted. Doing this by hand allows us ultimate control. Okay, so we're at the end. We're going to give it a twist. And now I'm going to take one of my pieces of string that I have cut here. And we're going to use a string and we're going to tie the end of it with the string. These can be cut off right before eating, or probably cut off right before right before these sausages get browned. You could cut the strings off. Do it once and we'll do it twice, just to be safe. And I'm using the string here because it's easier than you can actually tie the casing off, but. And now we just have to work, make sure everything is wet, and we just start stuffing. There's going to be some air involved, so I'm actually going to tap the mixture out of here. Pull the mixture out of the casing here. I just want to pull it out because I want to get rid of any air pockets to begin with before we even start this process. We need to make sure that there's no air when we do this. And we'll be able to massage the air out of this after the fact. But you use your thumb. And we're going to massage the sausage meat in the casing to its desired, and we can massage the air pockets out of the sausage once we get to our desired length. And just use your thumb. We're going to make small sausages, so we're going to we're about ready to, we're going to stop at this point, which means we're going to pull. We're going to start to work the air out of the sausage. Just start massaging the air pockets towards the end of the sausage. Then we're going to work the sausage back down to the end of the casing. So, I'm actually going to put just a little more meat into this link here before we cut it off. We want to make the link just a little bit longer, just a little bit here. Okay. And that's our first link here. I'm going to cut it off with the scissor. And now we have an open spot to deal with the air bubbles. Because I have a real hate for pricking sausages. I don't like to prick sausages unless you really have to. What we're going to do is give it a twist. It's about what we're looking for, and then we're going to take, the ends can be cleaned up later. Once all your sausages are made, we'll clean up the ends of the sausages. We will tie it again. And there's your first link of sausage. Place it in there. They're beautiful looking. These are not going to look like sausages you got that are smoked. These sausages are going to have a different look to them, being that they are not cured. Sausages that retain their color like a hot dog, which is an emulsified sausage, and all the smoked sausages, they contain nitrates. They have nitrites in them, which preserves them so that when they're smoked, they last longer. So now we've done our magic again, and now we're going to stuff. We're going to try and be very careful to fill. And we're going to make one about the same length as we did before. We'll just continue to do this. It's very easy to make sausages, and you can experiment. There are lots of books out there, great books for learning how to do this process. And you'll get better at it over time. And you may want to invest in a manual crank meat grinder with the sausage nozzles. And it allows you to stuff the sausages. So we're almost there. These are going to cure, what they call cure, not like technically cure because of nitrates, but they will cure in the refrigerator for 2 days before being poached and then browned in some clarified butter. Now that we got our second link, which is, I'm going to stop the second link here, cut it off. And we'll take our first, just like before, we need to got an air pocket there. I'm trying to alleviate the air pocket here. There we go. And we'll press it down in. That's what we like to see. Cool. We've alleviated that air pocket better than the first one. Now we'll do the twist. And we'll tie it at the end. If need be, once you're done with these, you can go ahead and re-tie them. Once they're all tied, I'm going to go ahead and probably retie some of them right up to the end here, so that you want to tie them right at the end here so that there's no extra space for the sausage to expand. There's our second link, and we'll make a couple more here. As for our presentation, we're going to need 4 links of sausage here. Take our next piece of string. If you're going to make breakfast sausages, I would suggest for proper traditional breakfast sausages, you're going to want sheep casings, but you can also use the hog casings. Are perfectly acceptable for making the breakfast sausages, because I have seen ones that are that shaped before, but the traditional is to use a sheep casing. continue to press the meat through. It's fairly easy to do here. Just be careful, and you don't want to be so forceful that you bust the casing. If the casing busts, you'll have to take the offended piece of casing off and then restart again. We're almost there. I'm going to put a touch more in here. And then we'll massage out the air pocket like we did before. So, we'll cut it off at this point. And by all means, you can wear gloves when you do this. It is not a requirement to do this job by hand. If you don't want to touch the meat, just wear gloves. It's perfectly acceptable to use gloves. Now we're down at the end again. And then we'll give it a nice twist. I like to make them individual sausages because when you make a rope of sausage links, it's good for some things, but I like the sausage, be able to use the sausages individually and not have to deal with an entire rope of sausages. There's our third link. And we'll make one more here. Make the last one here. Okay. We have our last two pieces of string here. There are lots of resources on how to tie the how to do the tying with the actual casing. But I find the string method just to be fairly easy to do. Stuff the last little bit here. I'm gonna have a little extra meat here. I'm actually gonna freeze this sausage meat and use it on a future date, but you're more than welcome to stuff more sausages, however many you got. But for me, I'm gonna freeze this extra sausage meat. I'm gonna actually freeze. And see, we're down to the end here, so we will just discard that last little piece of casing. And I'm going to, I have a lot of casing, so I'm actually going to discard the casing that's in front of me here. I'll just discard the extra casing. Get this last one tied here. And the final episode, Dinner at Joe's, I'm going to show you how to cook these sausages. It is being that they are individual and tied, it's fairly easy to cook these sausages. So, and there you are, 4 lengths of homemade sausage. Once poached, they are in fact pretty much fully cooked at that point. So once they're poached, you can go ahead and they're going to be, they need to be browned. That is an important step in the process. You want to brown them for an attractive color. And that is the sausage story to begin our odyssey of trio of lamb. And I will see you back here on the next episode, which will be the well-equipped kitchen and in Joe's kitchen, where we're going to be looking at lamb stock and a braise of lamb. And we're going to talk about stock pots, braising pans, and all of that lovelies. So I'll see you next time. Wanted to show you a little bonus clip here. What I have done here is I've used a vacuum sealer and I have sealed the sausages using the vacuum sealer. You load them in, place the bag in here, close it up, turn it on, and then massage. As the air is going out, just move the bag a little bit with your fingers, which gets the air moving out of the bag. I have sealed it. This was the original vacuum seal, and then I sealed it 2 other times, so it's got a sealing 3 seals on it just to be safe. It's going to cure in this bag, and it's also going to poach in this bag so that it poaches very evenly, which will happen in this bag. Then we will just cut open the bag. The sausages will be browned, and then we'll be able to cut off the strings and serve. And we will serve the whole. We'll probably slice the sausage in half on a bias so that you can see the beautiful inside of the sausage when we're doing the plating. But a vacuum sealer is a great kitchen item to have. It can prolong the life of many foods. Great for stuff in your freezer. Like me, I keep stuff in my freezer. If you make too much of something, then you can always, if you get the best deal on steak, you can vacuum seal the ones you're not going to eat right away fairly easy. But it's great to have a vacuum sealer. And that's our bonus video for today.